Welcome to the Narrowgate Podcast. I'm Weston.
And I'm Logan.
And this is the Blake Smith episode.
Blake Smith. Have you met the guy? Really cool guy.
Yeah, he's the director of Narrowgate Leather. He's also a graduate from 2015. And we got to hear a lot about his story.
Yeah, I think this is especially a great episode that if you are curious about coming to Narrowgate or you don't really know what it's like kind of pre-Narrowgate through the student experience, what's on the other end, this is a great listen because Blake did a great job walking us through his story and really the changes that God has done in his life to bring him to a place where he's like, hey, whatever's coming next, I got peace like a river, baby. And as always, if you want to hear more about Narrowgate, you can check out the show notes.
Show notes?
They're still there, apparently. Wow. We hope you enjoy the episode.
Blake, why don't you start off by answering a couple questions? Who are you and why are you here?
I'm Blake Smith, and I am loved by God and a son.
But why
Awesome.
are you
That's
here?
simple.
No, I'm just kidding.
That's a good answer. That is a really good answer.
Yeah,
So,
try to boil it
okay,
down.
in that identity statement, what would you say is your role here?
My role in Narrowgate is the director of leather operations. So I work with the guys in the leather shop. I've been a part of Narrowgate since I was a student in 2015. So I oversee the business operations of the leather shop and then focus on leadership, training, working with the guys, working with my manager. But yeah, that's my role here.
Yeah, so listeners who aren't familiar kind of with like Narrowgate Artisans or any of the products, like what is your leather shop kind of mainly putting out?
Yeah, it's our leather shop mainly puts out Bibles. So we launched our hand-bound Bibles in 2021, and that took a little bit of time to figure out how we make the jump from leather crafters and then add on the skill of binding because it's totally different. But that's been our number one seller for the last 3 years, which is 100% God. He led that. He had full control. That wasn't my idea. It just one day happened.
Now, do you read all the Bibles before you bind them?
Yeah,
in
I
leather?
flipped through every single page.
Quality control, just making sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm also a part-time scribe. I'm a full-time scribe. I go through these things.
So you came to Narrowgate in 2015, and Logan was on staff at that time.
Yes, I remember we were slowly remembering this 2 minutes ago.
What brought you to Narrowgate in the first place?
The biggest thing for me was I was a new Christian and I didn't know what I was doing at all. Like I had grown up in a Christian home and I had a great family. My parents modeled a good marriage and I just had a great upbringing. I just didn't really want to be involved with the church the older I got. But God started working on me when I was 16. I actually overdosed when I was 15 on some like synthetic drugs and went through this like whole vision like whenever I took it. But when I woke up in the hospital, my parents took me back home, and the very next thing my mom wanted me to do was to go to church camp. And I was like, okay, I got to go to this. Like, I have no say on my life anymore. I'm 15 and I just overdosed. I don't know what I'm doing.
But I mean, was that a pretty stark turn for you, or were you? I'm going to try to ask this. I'm doing it already. Were you primed for that kind of like, oh yeah, I'm a mess. I'll do whatever you say, or was that kind of a challenge for you?
I think I had always had in the back of my mind like I wasn't good enough. There's something going on. Things weren't clicking spiritually, even though I was around the church all my life growing up. There was this like pull towards evil, and I think that whenever that situation happened, I went to church camp and things just clicked. Like God showed up out of nowhere for me. And I remember that night I gave my life to him, just dropped to my knees, no shame, just full surrender to God, and got back and just slowly got pulled back into the wrong crowd. That was it for me. So it was from 16 to 18, it was just going back to chasing whatever felt good, whatever I wanted to do. And yeah, I came to the end of myself. Like I had went fully down that road. I joined a fraternity. I tried the partying, tried drinking, all that stuff. And I just felt so empty. And one of my mentors, I reached out to him and asked him like, dude, what do I need to do? I'm not making a lot of money at my job. And instead of like him telling me this great advice about how to make a lot of money, he just taught me the same thing that I had learned at 16. He preached the gospel to me.
Who was that mentor? I mean, you don't have to mention names. I was just wondering how that person kind of got into your life.
Yeah. My senior year of high school, I decided to leave public school because I felt like I had tarnished my reputation. I didn't really want to be known as this guy that was just, trying to have fun or like trying to get girls or just stupid stuff like that. The high schoolers. So I was trying to escape, and I ended up going to a private Christian school that my mom had been trying to get me to go to for a long time.
Are you a local guy? Or are you from out of
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
trying to
from
ask him where he's from.
Smyrna, Tennessee.
All over that. Okay, cool. Smyrna.
Yeah,
Right.
Grew up around here my whole life. Yeah, and he was the headmaster of the school actually, and just God put me on his heart to just walk with. I don't know why, but he became somebody that I could reach out to after that, because he pre-warned me going into college, like, hey, the path you want to go down, maybe not the wisest. And I was still too immature to like know. So I had to walk that road and figure it out myself. But yeah, he preached the gospel to me. And so I got saved again, fully surrendered, obviously can't get saved twice. I was saved the whole time.
Depending on what denominational circles you're in, but that's not the conversation for today. Just wanted to point that out. If you're listening, he didn't mean it. No, he did. And moving on.
Yeah, I was just angry. Angry that I had made mistakes, angry, had regrets. I didn't think that I was going to figure anything out. And when I first got saved, when I got saved again at 18, I thought the only two things that you could do as a Christian was either become a pastor or become a missionary. Like genuinely, that's the only options I thought I had. If I'm like really living my life for the Lord, then I can't do anything else. So that's kind of what led me to Narrowgate, because I had tested out the mission field. I lived in the Dominican Republic for 3 months when I was 19 and had a great experience over there.
What kind of stuff are y'all doing there?
I pretty much just went with my friend. We both flew over there and lived with a full-time missionary who was in his like 50s or 60s. And he was a wedding photographer. Or maybe a pastor. I can't remember.
What?
Yeah, he was an American.
There was such an even amount of both. I can't remember which one it was.
Yeah, he was an American married to a Dominican, and my friend told me about him. He was like my only Christian friend at that time, and he had been there a couple times. He's like, dude, we need to go to the Dominican Republic and be missionaries. And I'm like, okay, how much? And he's like, $4,000. So we started selling T-shirts, raising money, trying everything I can, saving up as much as I could. And so I got on a plane and just left. And while I was over there, I didn't speak Spanish, didn't know how to talk to them. So I bought a Spanish Bible and would just read from the Spanish Bible to the kids and play baseball and just build relationships. But I think I was more ministered to over there than contributing anything.
Sure.
Just because the people over there, they welcome you into their home. Like, you're off the street and you need food. Like, they don't even eat breakfast there, and they're feeding me breakfast and just honoring me. And I thought it was so cool.
Did you ever feel like that in your time in that 3 months with that sort of preconceived notion that as a Christian, you're either a pastor or a missionary? Did you ever feel like there was anything clicking in that was like, okay, I'm walking that out. I'm a missionary. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yeah. That's a funny question, because while I was over there, I was watching a lot of Matt Chandler sermons and trying to memorize them, because I thought that I didn't like being a missionary. It was really hard. And, we weren't with a church or anything. Like, it was really wake up, go out into La Romana, Dominican Republic, and find who's playing baseball. Like, that was it. So really fun experience. But yeah, I was just like, I'm not equipped to be a missionary either. So that leaves me with one option: be a pastor. And I don't think I I don't think God's not calling me to be a pastor. I'll tell you that.
You mentioned baseball. Is that something like I mean, obviously that was something that you had developed either a passion for or a skill for that you were then using to make relationship with people. I mean, you consider yourself a ball player still? I mean,
it's a love-hate relationship,
okay,
honestly.
What's that like?
Yeah, just growing up, I wanted to be the best, and just the more competitive it got, the less I enjoyed it. I mostly enjoyed the fun of baseball. I was an outfielder, so I mean, I could catch fly balls all day and be fine and go home. I didn't really want to take it any further than that. I think when I was younger, I did, but the older I got, I was just like, I just enjoy the sport. So getting to go over there, I mean, the kids at 13, they don't have gloves, they don't have bats, that's anything they can find. And so I brought up baseball, and we were throwing that thing at full speed with no gloves. Like that's how they like to play.
So you went for 3 months to the Dominican Republic, then you came back.
Yeah.
And then what happened?
When I got back, I just didn't have any direction. I didn't know where to go from there. I knew mission work maybe wasn't for me, and then being a pastor wasn't for me. So I was a janitor and just getting by on $10 an hour at the school I graduated from. So to the kids that were juniors in high school, I'm supposed to be going off to college. Here I am back sweeping the floors. And
It's really inspiring.
yeah.
I mean, I'm like, what do I ask? Because I mean, it takes a certain amount of grit to be able to walk yourself into that situation and kind of humble yourself. I mean, what did that feel like? What was going on in your mind during that season?
I think I was just anticipating something happening. I knew that there was something beyond that, and that if I just focus on what I'm doing right now, then eventually something will pop up. And that's all I did. I just went to my job and cleaned the floors and, painted, did odd end things. And one day I went and found this church that was local in town, showed up, and Bill Spencer was there. First time I had ever been to the church. And I think it was the service class was up on stage, and they were giving like 5-minute talks. They were speaking truth. They were acting like men. They were mature. And that's exactly what I wanted. I didn't have any of that. I kind of just isolated myself in the Christian bubble, and then boom, Narrowgate shows up first time I go to this new church. And my pastor, Scott Horde, he encouraged me to go and see more about it. So he invited me to the Greatest Gift Breakfast in 2014. And I put in an application, and then a month later I was here. I'm glad that I just focused on being a janitor and didn't try to figure out 5 ways to make $1 million today or do some weird hobby. I was just like, I'm going to do this the best I can and pray and find community. And that's how I ended up at Narrowgate.
That's really cool. I mean, there's something to those seasons of waiting and not scheming or planning what's at the end of those seasons. I know that God has grown me personally in those kind of intense, like, man, I don't know what's coming next, but I'm going to try to faithfully do what's in front of me as best I can. Well, it's really cool to hear that God was like priming you for, a transformative experience at Narrowgate. So what was that? What was that like for you? What was your kind of first impression, if you would, kind of like rolling onto Narrowgate campus or
showing up?
Yeah. Do you remember day one? We were trying to remember day one conversations earlier. I know everybody has a different take.
I was nervous, sitting in the back seat of both my parents drove me here, and we went and ate at the Santa Fe Diner that morning right before, the only one sitting in there. And I remember putting my can of dip, in the back seat where you put like folders and stuff, and just thinking like, this is it, like I'm giving it all up. No phone, no dip, nothing. I'm going to go and figure out what God has to say about me and what my identity is and what my purpose is. That was like, I'm very one-track minded and can tend to be hyper fixated on almost whole seasons of life. So that when I was a student, like I didn't really care about anything else other than hearing God's voice, like trying to audibly hear it come in, and like, why is it, asking those questions like, well, why can't I audibly hear him? And then Bill, one day I was like, I don't think you'd want to audibly hear God. You'd probably like drop to the floor. And I'm like, yeah, I don't. So I stopped praying that prayer. Like, God, maybe if you just speak to me like softly while I'm here.
Give me that still soft voice. Let me try that on.
Yeah.
Well, what was it during your Narrowgate experience that sort of shifted things, where you sort of found what you were looking for?
Galatians 2:20.
All right.
Yeah. That single truth alone, that it's not me,
Yeah.
it's Christ in me, changed everything. Because I realized like I don't have to carry anything anymore. It can just be him, and that's enough. And so once that got hammered deep in my heart, things started to change, and I had a drive to just continue to grow. I knew from that point on, I wanted to be a son. I wanted to be, and then I was. It was like in combination. I wanted to, and then I was at the same time. And I think that's the mystery of the faith, is like, desires are all over the place at times, but there's one thing now that's unchanging. It's like, I want to be like Christ. And then also I am, and he is in me, and it can't be removed either. Like, so that in combination with he's in me, but he also can't be removed. And where is he at? Oh, he's in heaven, seated at the right hand of God. That's where I'm seated too. If that verse is true, then that means that I am in Christ in heaven. And so my life here on earth is just being a vessel now. That's it.
Yeah.
And once it all kind of clicked through the rest of my Narrowgate journey, because that was probably month 4 or 5, because I did journal a lot, it's cool to look back on some of the thoughts that I had that were just, ask the questions that I had for myself. And yeah, anyways.
Dude, that verse, I have a similar experience with that verse in particular, because something like, I love how you said it, something unlocked in you, because when you realize that it's not my life anymore, it's Christ's life in me, then all of a sudden the pressures of trying to do it right kind of fade away. The idea of, oh, I need to try really hard to be righteous, to live righteously. It's like, it's not your righteousness. Anything righteous that comes from you is his life lived through you. And so if you're not, if the righteousness that's produced from your life is attributed to him, then you all of a sudden stop, you stop beating yourself up so much about the unrighteousness, because that's just walking in the flesh,
Yeah.
So I think that for me, understanding that the life that I now live in the flesh, I live by faith in the Son of God, it relieves the pressure of trying to meet this, unattainable mark, and knowing that anything the good that comes from me is Jesus in me. And so I'm only responsible for just getting as close as I can to him, and my life will reflect that.
Yeah. And it's pretty cool too. Like, we have a choice to put the ball back in his court. Like, one thing that I'm just thinking about right now, and it's kind of been like the seasonal thought, is, prayer. And the way I'm seeing prayer now, which was through reading a book called like Living Like Monks, Praying Like Fools or something. But he says you're relinquishing control when you pray. So like going to God with the worries that I have, my wife's pregnant. We're going to have a baby next year, Lord willing.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We're so excited. Like, thinking about that, knowing that I can relinquish that control. Like, I'm not a woman. I'm not my wife. I'm not going to push out this baby, and even for her too, like praying, God, be in this, whatever the outcome may be, it's yours. And I don't have to worry. Like, you're a good God. You give good gifts to us. You're a good father. You're a good shepherd. You're never going to forsake me. Like, all those things. It's like, it's more simple than I made it in the past.
Yeah. I was just listening to a sermon on Philippians 4, and the part where he talks about, make your requests known to God with thanksgiving, and the peace of God will guard your heart. And what it doesn't say is that bring your request to God, and then the answer will bring you peace. It's like just the bringing is where the peace comes from. It's not about the answer of the prayer. It's about the communion. The communion with God is what brings the peace. And so I think that's cool. You relinquish control. You bring your request to God, and just the interaction alone, just the process of bringing it to God is what produces the peace in you.
Yeah. And just like looking back at, since Narrowgate, like all the things that God has done, it's all been from that place. Like even when I was in the Dominican, I didn't know what I was going to do when I got back from there. I didn't have a job lined up. And I came across the verse at the end of Matthew. This was like probably the first spiritual truth that the Holy Spirit ever taught me. Seek first the kingdom of heaven and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. All the things being like shelter, food, everything spiritually that we need. And I just was like, God, I don't know what I'm going to do when I get back home. But this verse says that if I just put you first, you're going to take care of that. And I didn't think that he was going to give me like some crazy job or anything like that. But I knew that he was going to do something if I sought him. And that to me isn't sitting on the couch. It's getting up and thinking and reading and doing, but with the heart of I'm seeking after him in this moment. How can I seek God in the very moment that I'm in right now? Like I have to ask myself that all the time. Cause the flesh can just rise up and pressures and deadlines and all that, so it's just going back to that over and over. It's how I found the amazing wife I have. It's the same thing. Like I was in a relationship with her and I wanted to honor God with that relationship and seek him. And, how I was able to do that back then is only him. And even now too, like we're moving work from Franklin to Columbia, and the leather shop's going to be awesome. You guys have to come see it.
But is that an invitation to everyone?
Yeah, everybody.
Not here, just everyone.
You guys.
If you're hearing this, you're invited.
Look right here and say you're invited to come to the leather shop.
Come
You're
spend your money
invited
at the
to 1500 Herbert Lewis in Columbia to see the new leather shop.
Got him. Where? How did we get there? How did we get there?
You were talking about moving from Columbia to Franklin to
Yeah,
Columbia,
yeah.
and
It's just like, okay, what's with all the stuff that's going on, everybody's doing, we have the whole thing planned out. Like, dude, that's great. That's part of the job. Like you have to plan it. But at the same time, like I'm not stressed
it's in God's
because
hands.
it's in God's hands.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do everything I can to make that happen. But if it doesn't, it's in God's hands.
Right. Yeah.
But it will.
And it never left his hands.
Yeah.
So you're getting ready to have a baby.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
I'm nervous, but I'm excited. I have honestly no expectations.
None.
No, I expect them to cry. I think I am expecting the, probably bad parts, which should it be bad? I don't know. Like, is it morally okay to say it's bad? Yeah.
Difficult parts.
There's
Yes.
some hard parts. Yeah. Yeah. It's okay. Nobody's going to get mad at you for saying that.
Yeah. Like I'm excited. Allie's excited. We've been married for 7 years and this is perfect timing. I feel like everything's perfect timing, but I don't know what to do right now though. Like what does a guy do 2 months into finding out his wife's pregnant? Like I have no idea. So you mean you guys are both dads?
I prayed a lot.
Yeah. That's never going to hurt. You pray as much as you can.
Yeah.
Man.
I read a bunch of like just stuff that was worthless to me, looking back. Like much I was trying to get really comfortable with the idea of being a dad. What should I do? What should I learn? Like changing diapers and like, how to give baby CPR and things like that, which I don't remember anything about that part,
That is kind of funny because you can do a lot of prep. I read a few books.
Yeah.
And in that moment, you never know what's coming, and God will see you through it all.
Yeah.
Good and bad.
Yeah.
But like the moment that our second born was a accidental home birth, and my wife is screaming at me to run into the bathroom and says, "Deliver this baby." And I say, "I don't know how to deliver a baby." In that moment, everything I'd ever read, any TV show or movie where somebody has an emergency, it all just goes blank.
Yeah, there's no preparation.
No, you can't.
No, I remember. I mean, I try to describe, the whole delivery process as the most beautiful and horrifying thing I've ever experienced. It's incredible.
I don't know. My memory of that season, especially with our first, was just like, just sitting around at night, cuddling with my wife and just dreaming out loud about how we wanted to raise our family, what our kids might be like. We were excited to have kids, and that was a really sweet time. But yeah, dude, I think you're already like, you're already primed where you are with the Lord, and even some of the things that you're putting in the forefront are like, man, this is who I am. And this is what God has taught me. Like even in this interview, like you're in a good spot for what's coming next.
Yeah.
Cause you just cling to him, seek him and seek first him and his kingdom. And dude, like all other things are going to be added.
Yeah. It's like, I can tell myself that. And then getting into it, it's like reminding myself over and over.
Yeah.
Like you're right. Like even now, like I had to be reminded about that certain situation, like it can just be put off to the side. But it does, like everything. And I haven't been thinking that way. So thank you for saying that.
Well, dude, I think you got another leg up. I mean, the fact that you lead a team of people in your role, right?
Yeah.
As the head of the leather shop. I mean, even just like growing and learning and developing, like, man, how do I lead people? I mean, I don't know about you, but I feel like I'm learning more about how to parent my own children. I have 4 now. But I feel like those leadership qualities like become parenting qualities. I don't know if you can speak on that probably more specifically, but
being on staff here at the lodge takes a lot of that same sort of emotional energy that it takes to parent. And so on one hand, it's a really good thing because it kind of preps you sort of subconsciously to be a better parent. But then on the flip side, it also, there's the potential for it to sort of steal some of that energy that you need to have with your kids.
Yeah.
I think that the best advice, if you can call it that, or the best input that I could give on the front end of getting ready to have a new baby is spend your time now focusing on the man that you want to be, because that's all that's going to matter. Like we were just talking about, there's not really much point in preparing for what you're going to do and how you're going to do it, because it's all just, it's a different experience for every person, different kids, different parents, different circumstances. But you can focus on the kind of man that you want to be, the kind of dad that you want to be, and look for opportunities to practice that now, and like he said, having a team of people that you're pouring into is a great opportunity to practice that. I don't know about you, but whenever I first had Urban, my first, it just dawned on me pretty quickly, like how selfish I am, like how much I had to sacrifice my own wants or my own, sort of goals or, ambitions maybe, because now you've got somebody who's completely dependent on you and absolutely in need of your time, attention, affection, and so it dawned on me pretty quick. Like, man, I didn't even realize how selfish I was. So I think for whatever that's worth.
That reminds me. I mean, I remember the night my first was born, and I had this like visceral reaction similar to that of like I was in an instant so heavily aware of how selfish I was. Even to the point of, I remember like calling my dad that night and like snot bubble tears going, I am sorry for everything. And I thank you for everything. And like, that's all I could say. And it was nothing clearer than that. I was just like, I'm thankful for everything. And I'm really sorry for everything. That was it.
My parents get that phone call, fairly regularly. That's great. Like my kids bicker back and forth and they fight and they argue. I just call up my mom and I'm like, I'm sorry. I know me and my siblings did that too, and it's just infuriating.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you obviously got a lot to be excited about. I mean,
Yeah.
with growing your family.
Do you think you'll be at Narragansett Artisans for a long time?
I'm here right now, and I continue to be present.
Good answer.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
good. Kind of goes along with that bloom where you're planted mentality that you've been talking
Yeah,
about.
that phrase is huge for me
Mm-hmm.
because I truly believe that. So yeah, I'm just committed and doing the best I can to continue to be a part of Narragate. I love what this place does. I love the community, the relationships that come from it, the brotherhood. All of it has to do with relationships. And just seeing like how God continues to change guys' lives. So I love what I do, and I'm going to do the best I can.
That's good.
I just think it's really cool, even just hearing some of your story, you know, pre-Narragate. It seems like you've always been a person who's geared towards knowing the value in relationships.
Yeah.
You know, you mentioned, you know, the different mentors or going off with your friend, you know, to the Dominican. I just think it's really cool that that God has placed you in a role right now for as long as he has you in it. It's like you then get to show and teach and live by example, but show these guys who are underneath you and staff, and then also the students, the Narragate students who come through the shop, you know, to hang out with you. Like, you get to show them the value of seeking a relationship and going deeper into a relationship with one another and with the Lord. And I just think that's really cool. I think God made you for that.
Yeah, I think so too. And it's funny looking back, my pastor, whenever he told me about Narragate, he asked me right before I left, he's like, hey, when you get there, figure out what the secret sauce is. Yeah. Because he wanted to know, you know. Okay. He knew that he couldn't be a student, and he loves Narragate. And so that's one thing I thought about the whole time, like while I was here, like, what is it? What is the secret sauce in the Bible with our relationship with Christ? Like, because it can't just be a place or a thing that's special. You know, what is the secret sauce? And it is community, and it is community that's seeking the same thing. You know, it's not just some random group. It has a purpose. So when I get to meet somebody and I know that that's what they're about, I'm about the same thing. And I want to be a part of that. And it doesn't matter if you like some random hobby or anime or things that I personally don't like.
Disclaimer.
Yeah.
I was like, he either really loves anime or he's making a point. He's making a point.
Like, do you? And, you know, that's what makes you awesome, is that you're different than me. You know, it's not just about what I like. It's a pretty shallow way to live.
Yeah. Well, and that community is not just important in like community of believers, but even in your season of being a new dad, you're going to need a community of fathers, you know, to kind of help you out and walk with and,
Yeah.
you know, bounce ideas off of and frustrations and struggles and things like that. It's kind of one of the bigger important things that
Yeah.
I think are
And I think
necessary.
it's important for your spouse too. I think that's one of the ways that I've watched my wife grow since she became a mom, is like finding her mom friends, her mom communities, you know, now as the kids are older, play date communities or homeschool,
Yeah.
like these groups, like, man, we have there's such richness in building relationships that are for this time and for this season, but are also kind of long lasting and lifelong. I don't know what I'm saying, but yeah, relationships are important. I did the thing I said I wasn't going to do. Oh my God. So Blake, it's really cool having you here, man.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
great talking with you, dude. We're excited.
You guys
We're excited
too.
about everything you guys got going on.
Yeah.
You know, if you were to think about one way, thinking about our audience, you know, being Narragate grads, you know, guys from 18, 19, all the way up in almost 40s now, like, you know, what word of encouragement or challenge would you give our listeners today?
Well, if you made it this far, then I would say exactly what this has been about, which is seeking first his kingdom and his righteousness, and trusting that he's going to give you life in return. That's my encouragement.
It's awesome.
It's good. It's really good. Well, dude, thanks for coming out and, letting us talk to you for a little while.
Yeah.
Appreciate you. I love you.
Love you guys.
Thanks, man.
It's been fun.